You are listening to a Raptors podcast, the place every week for all things Raptors. Get ready and never underestimate the heart of a champion. Hello and welcome to the third final episode of a Raptors podcast for this season. It's been quite the trek so far, and it's never been as low as it has been the last couple of weeks. Raptors now lost 12 in a row. Most recently, of course, to the Knicks, both New York teams, and the Nets of New York. Some will call them Brooklyn, New York, right? And the first game was a bit of a stinker where the Raptors only put up 88 points, one of the worst offensive outputs of the season. But what would you expect from a team basically devoid of any talent surrounding them at all? And somehow the next game was even worse against the Knicks, where the Raptors had their biggest loss of all time, I'm pretty sure, against the Knicks. 44 points they lose by on home court. And I actually had a chance to go to this game, but maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I thought. New York puts up 45 in the first quarter, 45-33 in the first quarter it was, and they win the second quarter by 10 points as well, going into half up by 20, and it just continued to be 10 points per quarter. The Raptors were spotting the Knicks, and the defense maybe picked up, but the offense definitely didn't. Agbaji goes down pretty early on in this game. He goes up for an alley-oop dunk, lands almost directly on his hip and tailbone, and you could tell just the amount of speed he was going, flying from the air to the ground. You could tell it was going to be an injury that he's going to be fighting for quite a while, and it's tough to see. I mean, obviously now there's more opportunities, but just to see anybody go through an injury of that sort is pretty disheartening. And Agbaji, especially when he's really trying to make himself something here in this league. And he has an opportunity here with the Raptors to get a bunch of game time. And maybe he hasn't done the best with what he's been given so far, but he's had sparks. I don't know if he's had as glowing sparks as Jordan Nwora has had, but he has had some sparks here and there. And to see it cut short for this season at least is a little tough to see. And it just means more minutes for the G Leaguers, I like to call them. New one coming in, Kobe Simmons. He plays 24 minutes in this one. Basically, everybody's getting minutes here. In this game, we see a total of 11 players getting more than 10 minutes. Actually, 10 players getting more than 10 minutes. I'm counting Agbaji because he started, but I guess I shouldn't have counted him. And yeah, just a lot of minuses. Every single player deep in the minuses, double-digit minuses here. Garrett Temple, for the first time in the season, showing up. He had 15.6 rebounds, 2 steals. Quite a surprise. He hasn't been playing of recent, and he's finally getting some more time here. 37-year-old, 13th season Garrett Temple playing in his 20th game this season for the Raptors, and I think it's his first one above double digits, and he was hitting some threes. Maybe he can be a piece down the stretch here as we have just about 9 more games to go. Maybe he comes alive and earns himself a roster spot for next season. If he does, I think that is signifying another tank year. Another thing Temple said in the media was pretty interesting is he said this was the craziest season of his 13 years in the NBA, which is pretty wild because it's been pretty damn boring. But I think for the players it's been quite hectic, maybe not the same for the fans, but I mean the amount of different players that have popped in and out of the lineup for the Raptors this season has been pretty wild to see, and he's obviously witnessing it with having to know these people and personally trying to connect with a new guy every 3 seconds. It's pretty wild. And like I said, new guy coming in right now with Kobe Simmons, who didn't have the greatest of games, sir. He picks up 6 assists, which is pretty good for his 24 minutes that he came in for, but only 2 points, 1 for 6, 0 for 3 from 3. Freeman Liberty, finally with his first good game. He's been tearing it up for the 905 in the G League. He's one of the G Leaguers I'm talking about. And he goes for 14. He's just efficient in this one, which he has not been at all. I really like his speed, his burst, but he just hasn't really shown anything to prove to me that he's an NBA player. And, a better performance for him today. But he needs to be that consistently before you can say really anything. And he needs to be more than this, to be honest, consistently. But it's improvement, to say the least. The best player today for the Raptors was Grady Dick with 23 points. Not really giving you anything else in the stat sheet. He was a minus 26 as well. But 10 for 18 from the fields, 3 for 6 from 3. Doing what he does best, knocking down the threes. And he also had some nice finishes around the basket. And, he's probably the exact opposite of Scottie Barnes, where Scottie Barnes is like everybody's saying his swing factors. If he can get that 3-point ball going in, all of a sudden he becomes a superstar. And we've seen him get that 3-point ball more in, even though his efficiency dropped towards the end of the season. Grady Dick is, if he can finish around the basket and if he can create for himself, that's his swing factor where he can become a really good starter, maybe even a superstar in this league. I would argue that he still has, a little bit more playmaking, a little bit more defending to learn before the superstar moniker can really get implanted on him. But the most important skill is shooting in the league, and that's what he has here. And he's been able to improve his finishing around the cup, which is really, really important. Upgrading his strength as he gets older will also be something that just naturally comes along. As he figures that out, I'm sure he'll be a better defender and be more sure around the basket. A lot of his finishes are smooth, slithery finishes, and there's a limit to how many of those you can get in a game, and those can be defended easier than just somebody who just overpowers you. So maybe he can add that to his game in the future. Gary Trent Jr. with 18 points. He's been the same sort of stat line for a couple weeks now, which at least is consistent, which is something we didn't really have at all. But yeah, Gary Trent Jr., 1 for 2 from 3, 6 for 11, 6 assists. Kelly Olynyk with 8 assists. He's one of the bright spots on this team. Basically, our big three right now is Grady Dick, Gary Trent, Kelly Olynyk, because they're just NBA players. They're a big three because they're way much better than the rest of our team, but they're big three because, just that, right? And so it's pretty interesting. Bruce Brown was somebody you could argue, he's an NBA player, and he is. Argue maybe he's in that big three, but today he was not. He was just atrocious. 20 minutes, giving you nothing, 1 for 3 from field. Really should have traded him at the deadline. I think we could have traded Gary, but if we trade those guys, what is this team looking like? Jeez, we are in contention for one of the worst teams ever. If that was something that we decided, if that was something we decided to do, and we're not looking good. Gaye gets in here. He had a big dunk. Those were his only 2 points, 2 rebounds and assist. Not really much to speak of. Jalen McDaniels, once again, he's sort of filler. He's sort of a filler wing player. Raptors always seem to have a filler wing player on their roster, whether it's Yuta Watanabe or even, like Rondé Hollis Jefferson or whatever. You just find these guys, you can find them anywhere. And what a pull Rondé Hollis Jefferson is. He was just such a great time to have there. This year's version of that is Jalen McDaniels for the Raptors. And for the way it went, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, and the way it went, Yuta Watanabe, I don't think he's going to be here next season. Just to let you know. And I think that's something you could say for a lot of these Raptors players. On the Knicks side, it was a really surprising game from Miles McBride, who's averaging just about 7 points per game on the year. He had 29 in this one. Got 40 minutes of run because the Knicks ran away with it, and they're just going to give it to the bench. He did start, But if you're going to play any of these guys extra minutes, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo's getting pulled out of the game. Brunson's definitely, Hartenstein as well. So you're going to see big minutes from Precious. You're going to see big minutes from Miles McBride, who just raining the threes in, 9 for 14, looking really good, plus 40 for Miles McBride. One of the most slanted box scores, blocks plus minuses you can see from a player. Brunson, maybe even more impressive, 26 points in 29 minutes with only 2 free throws. He had 7 assists as well. Really, he's going to be an all-NBA player for the next, which is crazy to think of how far he's come since 2 years ago, where he was averaging 16 and the Mavericks didn't want to re-sign him. And now look what he's grown into. I think that was such a great deal for the Knicks and for Brunson to see where he is now. Just to be in his own city with his own people, getting the car keys, really worked out for him, and he's taken advantage of every single opportunity. And it's great to see. He's a great, really fun player to watch. DiVincenzo only shot threes today, was 5 for 12, 16 points. 1 free throw as well. Hartenstein, really efficient as well, 5 for 6, only played 19 minutes, 15 points in 19 minutes because the Raptors have no bigs. Once again, the Raptors only get 28 rebounds in this game. Yikes. Bogdanovich, 18 points. Achua with 19. I had little something to say on Instagram after this one about the Raptors. Very coded, but like rap line coded. You can tell what he's saying. He's saying Raptors didn't treat him well enough, basically. 12 rebounds for Achua in this one. He was all over the place. And Josh Hart also getting 10 assists. Not really running it up score-wise, but 10 assists, 7 points. Josh Hart, really good depth piece for the Knicks there. Moving on to the other game, the earlier game versus the Nets. This one was just, you're stuck in the mud the entire game if you're the Raptors here. Offensively, Gary Trent putting up his 18 points per game that he always seems to put up. Other than that, really nothing. Freeman Liberty, his best game of the season, 15 points, 4 rebounds. Like I said, he's getting more consistent. He's getting these good performances, and still need to see a lot more consistency from him. Olynyk, not really what you want to see. Still got 9 assists. Really point Olynyk out here. Love to see the passing, and that's really Darko's vision, I think, is the passing big who gets involved. The thing is, we need a big because we only had 30 rebounds in this game to the Brooklyn Nets 50. You can say whatever you want, but man cannot coach rebounding because you need somebody big. Nick Claxton has 16 boards in this one. Yikes. Absolutely all over the glass. And Olynyk, Akbaji led the team with 5 rebounds. It's tough out here for sure. When Akbaji is leading your team in rebounds for the game, he had 11 points. Like I said, this was honestly one of his more consistent, better games. Getting to the rim with ease, hit a 3 as well, but it was short-lived due to an injury. Hopefully he's back, but it looked pretty tough on him. Grady Dick, not his best game, didn't even hit a 3. Yikes, what are we doing here, Grady? 0 for 5, 3 for 11, 8 points. Trying his best, I guess. Yay. Bruce Brown had 10 points off the bench. That's his basic stat line. Simmons played in this one as well, 7 points. Just stick in the mud stuff. Ball somewhat moving. We got 23 assists, but when you're scoring 88 points, does it matter if the ball's moving or not? I don't think it does. And the Nets basically just took this game in the fourth quarter. It was actually pretty close with some great defensive basketball, maybe some poor offensive basketball, you could say. They're also a team sort of waiting for this season to end and in a little bit of a rougher spot than the Raptors just because they decided to tank a little too late compared to the Raptors, who pretty much picked the perfect time, I think. We're going to end up in 6th spot unless some crazy wins happen, which I do not foresee. Schroeder had his revenge game, getting 19 points, 7 assists. He was in, he played his game. He had the Achua game, I guess you could call it. And leading the team, the Nets, with points was Trent and Watford. We're sort of letting just random guys go off on us now. Mikal Bridges was one of the players of the game that Matt and Jack had, but only 13 points, 5 for 15 from the field goal. I think they had the Gary and Miles Bridges comparison pretty much set in stone before the broadcast even happened, before he was even scheduled. Because there's not many other players you can have it for. You can have it for Kelly. You can have it for Grady. If you really stretch, you could have it for Nora or Brown. But yeah, I don't know why Nora's not starting. I know he's had some tough games. He had a tough game against the Nets, against the Knicks. I'm just a really big fan of what I see from him. He had a good game from the Knicks. He gets boards and he gets to the rim really well, and you see those flashes. He was 3 for 6 in the next game, hit a 3, and he's getting 3 assists, 3 rebounds. I like what I see from Jordan Nwora that I don't really see the same sort of stuff from Akbaji, but whatever. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it next season, I think. Both probably will, I expect, to be on the roster upcoming seasons. At least one more. Gaye also played in this one. 12 minutes, 2 points once again. Garrett Temple as well. 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Sort of having his victory lap, I think, at this point. Garrett Temple is. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it a career by the end of this year because, like he said, it's been pretty wild for him and just about everybody. And that's basically the rotation the Raptors have got. I've covered everybody. And it's just not good enough to beat the Nets. Not good enough to score 90 points on the Nets. And like I said, we're able to have Watford go over us. Trendon Watford. Dennis Schroeder's going for one of his better games on the year, even though he was 1 for 7 from 3. Miles Bridges doesn't even need to have any sort of impact. Doesn't matter. And you look at their rest of their team, it's not much better than the Raptors. I think you would take Deron Sharp, you would take Lonnie Walker on the Raptors. Cam Thomas doesn't play in this one. You would take Finney Smith. You'd take Bridges, obviously, Claxton, Schroeder. There's guys on the Nets that are better than what the Raptors have, but just a little bit better and not good enough for the Nets to win games. And so that's why I sort of foresee them in a worse spot than the Raptors are currently in. One last thing before we go over the games next week. Jalen Wilson also playing here sort of out of nowhere, had 12 points, plus 8, hit a 3, played some good defense as well. And the Nets come away with a win by 8 points against the Raptors in a stick-in-the-mud game. Now, upcoming for the Raptors, the schedule for next week. All right, for next week, I don't think you'd be surprised to say that I don't foresee any wins upcoming. I think I see, we got Philadelphia, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, and the Bucks upcoming. All teams that are in the play-in, all teams that are, good. Philadelphia is probably our best shot without Embiid, but they did just go down to the wire against the Clippers, so I don't foresee too much of a competition there. Nick Nurse's revenge game, Lowry back in the city, so that'll be a fun one. And then we've got the Lakers, see LeBron. The Timberwolves get to see Ant. Milwaukee get to see Giannis. I don't know why that slipped my mind for a second. And Dame as well, of course. And then we just have the 5 games left in April as well. Season's starting to wrap up here with a nice little bow. And yeah, Washington could be a win. Brooklyn could be a win. Philadelphia, possibly a win. Other than that, I see loss. L's. I think we see maybe one more win for the Raptors the rest of the year just to break the streak. And yeah, it's going to be tough to see a team follow the Raptors because how can you do that to yourself? We will see which game it is upcoming, but a good week, some stars we're going to see against the Raptors here in the future. Now I'm going to go on a little bit of a break and be back for you guys to cover just about what's going on everywhere else in the NBA. So I'll be back in a sec. And I am back here just to cover a little bit. Gonna switch it up as well. Gonna start with the Western Conference. I think not much to say about the Boston Celtics' reign over the Eastern Conference, even though I just said it. Western Conference, top of it, currently by half a game, is the Denver Nuggets. Who else? Who would have it been? Denver Nuggets now 51-22. Timberwolves Thunder 50-22. All some really good teams there. The Denver Nuggets looking unstoppable as ever. I think, with Jokic basically doing everything, you can't really stop him from doing anything. You have to be able to stop Jamal Murray, and that's sort of your way to dethrone the Nuggets. But it's going to be tough for the Timberwolves, for the Thunder to get an upper hand. Both young teams trying to find their path here. And any given Sunday, they can knock off the Nuggets and be on their way to their first, for the Thunder since the 2010s, their first finals. And for the Timberwolves, it would be their first finals ever. The last time they got even close was in 2004 with KG. Nothing since, even though they've had just about every single first-round pick, every single first overall pick to make that difference. Did not happen, but this is their season with Anthony Edwards, their construction, Chris Finch as the head coach. Really tough team with the star power to boot, on a 3-game win streak right now, coming for the Nuggets' number 1 seed. And, this is going to be a crazy playoffs for sure. Behind them is the Clippers, who I'm personally a big fan of. They did just take down the 76ers, which isn't really something to write home about, but taking down the 76ers in clutch time with some big shots. They were down by 3, and they were able to claw their way back with Kawhi Leonard getting a block right at the end on Oubre at the buzzer. Probably was a foul. Nick Nurse was livid about it, but the Clippers held on, and that keeps them within 4th. Behind them is the New Orleans Pelicans, clipping on their heels. 45-28 for them. They've been on a bit of a winning streak here, 7-3. Clippers not really hot right now, 4-6, but they still have time to figure it out. And I just really like the way the roster is constructed. I know they got some injuries, but if they can figure it out, man, oh man, what a squad. And they've sort of had some really bright spots throughout this year, where they've seemed just undefeated, where they could be joining those top 3 teams. Pelicans, their heater is right now. Mavericks, their heater is right now, 9-1, 5 wins. They're in 6th. Behind them is a half a game is the Phoenix Suns, who are also on a bit of a heater of recent. They were really figuring stuff out, like I've been saying, for the first half of the year. But the 13 games above 500, they've figured it out. Kings, 12 games above 500, really congested here in the West. And then the Lakers, who are 9 games above, 5 wins in a row on the bounce for them. The Warriors, and all out of nowhere, the Houston Rockets with 10 wins in a row. All of a sudden, 2 games over 500, a game behind the Golden State Warriors for that 10th and coveted, very coveted, play-in spot. They have been just about as good as anybody of recent, led by your boy Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green, who's been playing out of his mind in March Madness for him, and they're making a late run to try to find something out. And, Fred VanVleet, bet on yourself. Who knows? Maybe they find their way somehow into the playoffs. And the eliminated teams, the 4 eliminated teams from both conferences here, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, the Blazers, and the Spurs. Not going to talk about any of them. Not going to talk about the Raptors, Hornets, Wizards, and Pistons here in the East. I've already talked about the Raptors enough, and they're irrelevant enough where it does not matter. Lost 12 in a row, that's the most in the league. Now we move on to the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics, 57-16, atop 11 games ahead, 8-2. They have been dominant all year. Running out of stuff, out of compliments to give them. And it's looking just as obvious as ever that they're, making their eyes on that finals appearance since they've played the Warriors then. And they look like by far the best team in the East. Teams, trying to make that comparison, the Bucks just been a hot mess all year, even though they are still a winning team, winning basketball team. They've been quite a mess. The Knicks with OG are dominant without him, missing a little something. They need to have OG if they want to have a shot at this. But they do have a shot, I think, with OG, and it's something to keep in mind. They could beat any team on any given day with the way that Brunson's been playing, Randall as well. Behind them is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who similarly are constructed very well and their parts fit well together. I think they themselves just need that OG Anunoby piece as well to really mesh it all together, and they don't have it, and they are 3-7 in their last 10, really struggling here in March and stick in the mud a little bit, coming from a high of being in second in the East. The Orlando Magic right behind them, them and the Pacers, some young teams with a lot of young talent. They are missing a Brunson, a Randall, to really, put it in. And you'd think that Siakam could have been that for the Pacers, but it just really hasn't been that way. I know that they were missing Halliburton. They've been missing Halliburton for quite a while, so understandable for them. The Heat and the 76ers follow them up, not really believing in either of those teams. They seem old news to me, and they're probably going to get knocked out in the first round if they make it to the first round, because in the play-in tournament, they have the Hawks and the Bulls. Hawks on a 4-game winning streak. They were 30-39, barely in the play-in, and now they're 34-39. Woo-woo, big difference. Not really. The Bulls trying to win the 9-10 play-in game for the second season in a row for them. It's pretty tough stuff, and they find themselves looking further, looking for more, and it might take a tank. They're old news as well. And the Nets as well, very old news. I mean, new news, just not good news, bad news. And that's going to do it for the conference look around. Thank you for listening. As always, it's been a Raptors podcast. Only 2 more episodes. Maybe I'll do an off-season recap as well. And I'll have you guys on your way, getting ready for next season. Hopefully we see some better stuff for this Raptors team, because I think we're all wanting it. And it will really just makes this city so much better when we do have a successful basketball franchise. But here's to hoping. Thanks for listening, guys. As always, follow me on Twitter. Do what you need to do. I'll see you guys around, and thank you.